Right. So we are planning to start sharp in 1 minute because we know you guys are taking an hour out of your day to go through this. We're super excited to take you through everything, all of the new features and improvements. So we're going to go ahead and kind of get started to give you some basic stuff. If you guys have questions, please feel free to use the webinar chat. You can use the chat function. You can use the questions function. And also, I believe we have emojis turned on. So if you see anything cool that you really love in this new release, please make sure to let us know. Nikolai, who's on the call, who's our CTO at Vev, has worked really hard on this release. We also have Eastling, product manager, in chat, as well as Eugene, a product marketing manager, in chat to answer any questions you guys might have. And it sounds like we have a lot of people from around the world: Copenhagen, Denmark, Detroit, Pittsburgh. This is awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First off, you might have noticed that the design editor has fully changed. And over the weekend, on Friday, we had released our biggest release yet. And we want to introduce you to the new style panel and the new layout features that we've brought into the platform. Really, overall, the goal with this newest release is to make it faster and easier to build responsive layouts. Anything from desktop to tablet to mobile should be far easier and far faster now, especially with the new features that we have, which we'll take you through. So, really quick, I do want to introduce the team. Like I said on the call, we have myself. My name is Parker Tinsley. I'm a product marketing manager here at Vev. We have Nikolai, who's our chief technology officer, on the line, as well as Eastling, product manager. And really, why I want to introduce the team really quick is because if you have any questions or anything about this release, you'll be connecting with everyone here on the screen. So, really, I just want to do a quick intro on kind of why all of this started, why everything kind of happened with this release. And really, it started out actually because in early 2021, we made the active decision here at Vev to actually stop support and updates for Internet Explorer. This actually happened alongside most of the web. I'm sure you guys were following some of the headlines going on. Internet Explorer is officially dead. Microsoft to unplug Internet Explorer. Again, knowing that Microsoft is using Edge, the newest browser. But by sort of stopping support for Internet Explorer, it allowed us to do a few things. It allowed us really to improve our code base and to improve the speed and performance of the editors. It also let us reduce the time it takes to build responsive layouts. And this we did by adding new layout features, which is what we're going to go over today. And then lastly, what we can also do in the future in the roadmap is introduce more modern features and functionality. So we're not there yet, but I think that it will be really exciting down the road. So let me just get set up real quick. So this is kind of a hodgepodge or an overview of this release, and we kind of boiled it down into three main buckets. We boiled it into what changed visually, which obviously you guys logged in, you saw the style panel had a whole new UI, new look, and everything. We will cover that. We had a host of new features. So you guys can see we have everything from constraints, automatic sizing, which I'm very excited about. Aspect ratio solves a lot of my personal problems. But what we're going to do today is actually go through a use case and go through these new features one by one so you can better understand them. And then lastly, we have some general improvements, things like section spacing, frame padding. Again, we'll cover this in the use cases as well as sort of a quick overview at the very end. But for the first thing I want to cover is what visually changed. So if I actually just go ahead and click into our editor here, you're able to see, and please take a second. If you cannot see, I can zoom in on this. So let me know if you need me to. But what visually changed here was the entire style panel. So what we've done here is we've introduced the new features that we have in the style panel, but we've also changed everything from the color to the UI. And this is because our product designers have actually been hard at work at our own design system that we've nicknamed Silky. And what we're doing is rolling out this design system throughout the entire platform. So you'll see these sort of UI changes happen in the dashboard, workspace settings, just kind of gradually as we continue the rollout. But the biggest one that we thought in terms of what would be the most apparent change is the style panel, which is why we want to take you through it today and make sure that everyone is trained and ready to go ahead and get started in it. Yep, perfect. I can display my screen in full screen. And I'll also just go ahead and zoom in a little bit. We know that the editor is very hard to see like this, so we want to make sure that everyone gets a good look. And again, just covering the style panel changes. Some of this might be very different for some of you. Some of these might be very minor. But again, we'll go through each of the new features. All right. So let's go ahead and get started to jump into it. The first new feature that we want to cover, the first two ones, are constraints and automatic sizing. And so let's go ahead and cover constraints. Now, what we have here is probably what you guys all have designed and built before. It's a hero of a landing page or a website, if you will. And what we've done here is we've designed this hero with a unique layout. We have multiple text boxes in different locations, and we're just trying to basically make this responsive. The really great thing about Vev that I'm sure all of you know is that the layout themselves can be incredibly custom and unique because you have the ability to essentially adjust the positioning, what device or breakpoint you're on. So, really quick, let's move to constraints. Now, constraints have replaced origin, and you can see constraints in the top right style panel here. So, really quick, what you need to know about constraints is that constraints kind of control the behavior or the positioning of your element. So, here we have a giant text element, for instance. And what I'm doing, as you'll notice, is I'm moving it on the canvas very slowly. And if you can see the constraint tool in the top right, that's what I want you to focus on up here. You're actually seeing that sort of docking, if you will, be updated in real time. If you guys remember the origin tool previously, the position was always set to the top left unless you manually changed it. But what we've done here is we've introduced constraints to be automatic. So a lot of the work is actually done for you. You can actually manually override by going to the drop down here, but we actually really do recommend kind of keeping it to be automatic. So for instance, why this is really important is because if I'm moving this text element, let's say into the center of my screen here, previously, if I went down to to a different breakpoint, that wouldn't change. It would be in the same positioning as the origin. But now, as we can see, we're going from left back to tablet. And if I move it back to center, that actually updates as well. And I see chat is going off really quick, and I just want to make sure we have everything. I apologize. I'm not able to take my video, so you're gonna have to see my face for the entire webinar. I apologize, but I know it's a little bit of an inconvenience. We'll try to see if we can figure that out, or if one of our moderators can. So moving back to constraints really quick. Again, constraints control the behavior, the position of your element. So as we're moving things, it's all done for us. So we can go down a tablet. It's in the right side of the section again, and you can do this for any really breakpoint. It'll do the same thing. And as we're going here. So what that means at the end of the day for everyone is that there's going to be less adjustments to be made when going to tablet and mobile breakpoints. So here is desktop, here's tablet, and to be honest with you, I actually haven't changed tablet at all. This was using the constraint tool as well as automatic sizing, which we're about to get into. This looks very good on tablet. On mobile though, we do need to make some adjustments, and I'll kind of get into that. So here we have desktop. and again, tablet. So let's go over automatic sizing. I'm just going to refresh my editor really quick. And you'll see here that we actually have new values for width and height, and that is auto or automatic sizing. And why this is incredibly such a great new feature, such a great new thing, is that the containers will actually adjust to the amount of content that you have in there. So, for instance, I have this text, for instance, in here, and I've added a line break. But if I kind of delete that and come back in here, I can say, hello world, for instance. So the entire container will actually update based off the content that's in it, if you adjust it to be automatic sizing. And that's actually really great, not only for the design editor, but also for writers who are working in collaboration with designers. So if you go to the content editor, for instance, we won't have that issue where you're kind of blocked or the container doesn't grow with you. For now, if you assign a value of auto to your containers, the whatever is in that content will grow with that. So the content editor, for instance, will have no issue in templates or in other designs, kind of doing that within that view. But I would say one of the most powerful things about automatic sizing, and something we've heard from feedback from all of you, is adjusting that within sections. So if I actually just come down here, take this text box, for instance, we've also we've also placed automatic sizing for sections. And what that basically means is that as I push this downwards, you'll see that the section actually grows as I push this down. And the reason why is because we've set this section, the default of the section is always going to be automatic sizing. The other thing we want to mention really quick is height. So height has changed altogether. Actually, we've actually introduced one specific value for height, and that is essentially minimum height. So you'll notice here that the height we have set as auto, but the minimum height, that's things that we can edit. So we can put it into percentage, for instance, if we want a relative value. We can also put it into pixels, so like 900 pixels, for instance. And I want to pause here for a second. Again, I hear chat going off, so I just want to come here and check. Sounds good. All right, so let's get back into it. So really quick, just in these three new features, we have constraints, which again, constraints will define the position of your element and how it behaves across breakpoints. So if you move it, that's fully automatic for you. So again, why we introduced this was that so you wouldn't have to worry about that anymore. We have automatic sizing, and again, this is things for this can be for text containers, it can be for images. It's really, really great for frames, which we'll kind of get into in a little bit. And then lastly, we have our height value. Again, height has been sort of depreciated because we want to always have that be automatic sizing, but you can specify the minimum height. So let's go ahead and cover the next new feature, clip content. So this one is a personal favorite of mine. If you work in design tools, if you work in Figma, Photoshop, Illustrator, you'll be you'll be comfortable with a term called masking. And what that does essentially is you can place an object over an image per se, and it creates a mask or a specific shape that you want to create. And we've accomplished that more or less in Vev through this new feature called clip content. So you'll see here that I have a slideshow in a frame actually. So if I go over here to my page content panel, you'll see that I have my slideshow here. It has three images on a timer, and I placed that in a frame. Now, the really awesome thing, and this is what I really love about clip content, is that I can get this sort of oval shape. So what I've done in that frame is I've given that a border radius. And I can come in here and I can adjust this however much I want it, 20%, 5%. I can just have it be a box like this. But what I've done here is I've adjusted the border radius to be 100%. And you'll notice here in our style panel, we have this nifty toggle for clip content. I've actually toggled this on, but now if I turn it off, you can see that it goes back to being just a regular image again. Again, if I click it on, we get that masking effect. So this is really great. It's not true masking, I would say. So it doesn't have all um, the same functionality as a Figma mask, for instance. But this is a step in the right direction, and I think it's going to be incredibly powerful for truly unique and original designs. Perfect. And I would say, like, it doesn't actually just stop there. The really great thing with clip content, and I think this is something that everyone will find really interesting, is let's say we add a new section to our let's say we add a new section down here, right? So I know a lot of you have actually run into this problem, and I'm just gonna say I'm just gonna take an image right now. Nice little Polestar vehicle. Um, and I know that some of you like to do some really unique layouts, and that means sometimes taking an image on a section and kind of pushing it up to be overlaid on the section above it. So sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. But clip content kind of goes to every element. So if I actually just go to the section here and toggle clip content on, you'll see that that actually is now hidden from there. And so if I go to preview, you can see that that top of the image is not there. But, this is great. Like, this is a poor example maybe, but if we kind of go in here, if we add a scroll speed add-on, for instance, I absolutely love scroll speed. And let's do like 60% preview in here. So that as the user scrolls down, it kind of reveals itself like that. And again, before that, the image would just be overlaid on top of the section and not have a great look. It would just be pretty much just like this, which is what we don't want. But now that we have clip content, we're able to create some really interesting designs. We can mask in terms of creating a slideshow like this. We can also create more interactive sections just by kind of, again, hiding that overflow. Great. So any questions on clip content? I'm just going to pause here for 1 second because I do want to make sure I answer any questions as we go through the features. So Courtney has a great question. She says, like rounding box corners in Illustrator, you can do each corner individually. So this is a great question. So you can with border radius actually do that. So what I've set here is the border radius to be 100% on all sides, but you can go into here and you can actually edit individual corners, if you will. So if you want kind of a unique design look in terms of the mask, you can do that equally as well. Great. So moving on to another new feature is aspect ratio. And this was actually my special request because I cannot tell you how many times I've embedded a video or uploaded a video into the canvas, and I always get met with the letterbox or the black bars here. And for me, it's always been a pain because I need to get the sizing just right. And then from there, I can shift, adjust it so that the essentially the aspect ratio is kept so I don't mess it up. But it's always kind of a pain to figure out okay, how do I get a 1080p video, for instance, which is 1920 by 1080 in the right format in Vev? And how do I get it scaled down to meet my design? Now, it's much, much easier. And the reason being is if we go to the right side here in the style panel, we'll see this new kind of this new icon here. And this does two things. This will lock your aspect ratio. So that means that once I get it into, the black bars are removed, for instance, I can do this manually or using the size here. If I click on lock aspect ratio, no matter how I move this, no matter say another designer is working in this with me and I'm scared that they might mess it up or someone else, now this is completely locked and cannot be messed up at all, which is great. So that's the first function of aspect ratio. But let's say I have the black bars here and I'm lazy. I don't want to kind of do this by hand. We also have a secret menu. So if you right click, you'll actually get some of the most common aspect ratios, whether you're doing an Instagram post, for instance, or a square, or 16 by 9, which is our standard TV. We can click on this and it'll automatically apply that aspect ratio to the video, which saves us, to be honest, a ton of time. So, one thing to add here too is we're looking at a video element when we're kind of going through this, but this can also be applied for sections. So what we can do here is, let's say, I unlock this, we've already made this section. If I, kind of mess this up a little bit. So let's say a thousand pixels. Again, we get the same issue. We get that black letterboxing, which we do not want. So we can quickly just fix by right clicking and choosing standard TV. And we don't have to worry about the aspect ratio at all. We can also just go down to tablet and mobile, and all that work is done for us. We don't need to adjust. And at the end of the day, like that's why we're introducing all these features, is because we want to reduce the amount of adjustments you need to make between the breakpoints. So this is one of my all-time favorite features that we've introduced. I'm super happy about it, and we hope you guys enjoy it too. Great. So we're going to go into Resize Tools. And this is not necessarily a new feature. We've improved upon it, but we wanted to add it as sort of a new feature because we realized not a lot of people are using it. So we think it's highly effective in helping to create responsive layouts, and we just kind of want to cover it today with you all. So what I want to do here with resize, and I'll kind of do this a couple of ways. So I have frames, and I'm going to take this out of my frame and delete it. So let's zoom in here a little bit for everyone. So normally when I'm here and I have an image, for instance, on desktop, I'll basically make this whatever size I want. Like we can go with a square, we can kind of just place it in the frame or whatever. But then I get into some challenging scenarios, especially I'll drop this down on tablet, and I would say even more so on mobile. And so what the resize tools help you do is to make those adjustments very quick on different breakpoints. So you can see this looks not right at all. And I'll zoom in so that everyone can see it more closely. If I go to the right side of my style panel, and if I go to my resize tools, we have three options. We have resize to fill horizontally, vertically, and then resize to fit, which we'll cover in a second. But if I just click on this, it automatically will fill my canvas or whatever container that it's in. So I can come in here, I can put the image to stretch, I can put the text box to stretch, and that just saves me so much time when I'm designing for mobile, for instance. On tablet, again, you're not necessarily going to want to do this, but let's say, hey, I want to start here. I know I don't want it to be 100%. I want it to actually be 55 or 50% or 25%. You can come in here and you can adjust height and everything. But basically, it just saves you a lot of steps from having to do it directly or manually on the canvas. So that's the stretch horizontal tool, which I think is incredibly powerful. And again, vertical is the same exact kind of function, just the other way around. So let's go ahead and Apple Z. But let's cover the resize to fit. And resize to fit is actually rather new to me. And I've been playing with it, I think, for the past month that we've kind of have had this in beta and figuring it out. But overall, what's been really cool to see is how resize to fit works with frames. So again, this is sort of my goal of what I want to create. But we're going to kind of go off a little bit here. So first thing I want to do is I want to go to desktop and I want to shift click my elements. And everyone should know the shortcut Apple G by now, or Command G, to be able to create a frame. So it groups those into a frame. So let's say I'm designing and I have this format essentially for a frame. But I get some feedback from a stakeholder or from somebody, and they don't like this. They want it to be on the left hand side right here like that. Um, and for me, to be honest, like it's all about reducing the amount of adjustments you need to make. So now I need to move the text box. I need to adjust my frame. It's kind of a pain, to be honest. But check this out. What I can do now is I can go into here, and I believe if I select the frame and click resize to fit, boom, it already adjusts it for you. So again, I'm going to do that again kind of slowly. Let's go back the other way. So I actually want the image. This is pretty classic. Person sees it or stakeholder sees it and they're like, wait, no, I want it back the way it was before. And then you're like, oh my God. But again, super easy with the resize tool. You go to frame, you resize to fit. And again, we're back right where it started. So no matter where it is in your container, you're able to just boom, click on the frame, resize to fit, and it adjusts accordingly. So I absolutely love this new feature. To be honest with you, I did not use the resize tools a lot previously in the editor, but since the team has sort of gone through this with me, I've been using this a lot more in my own designs. Great. So, any questions on the resize to fit or the resize tools? If not, I'm just going to continue going. All right, so let's continue. So let's go to our style indicator. And we had some fun with a little bit of like a design here. And this is super popular nowadays. I love this sort of design interactivity. So what we have here is we have some project titles, and as the user hovers over, we have some nice images that pop up that go along with the project. But today, what we want to cover is the style indicator. And if we have time at the end, if you guys would like to see how we set this up with triggers, we're more than happy to go over this with you because we know this is a pretty trendy design kind of functionality nowadays. But let's go over a style indicator. And I'm sure you guys all know, if you guys have been making large amounts of content and designs, you are very familiar with shared styles. But what we've done is we've created an indicator in the style panel to show you where the origin of that style essentially comes from. I know it's a little bit hard to understand, just me speaking about it. So that's why we're going through an actual example. But what you'll notice is in the design, in the style panel here, we have these new indicators. We have these new, essentially like traffic light icons. And to do a quick breakdown, yellow means custom style. Green means inherited from the device or from our main layout, which more often than not is desktop. And then I believe gray is just the default. So once you add an element on your canvas, that sort of has a default style. But more often than not, on desktop, all of your elements are going to be custom style because we're essentially custom designing it to fit our design. But when we go down again to other breakpoints like tablet and mobile, or tablet really quick, you'll notice that if I'm still in that same, let's say we're at this frame right now and I'll zoom in, you'll notice that these indicators have actually um, changed to be the green, so inherited from device. What this is telling me when I go through this is that this is inheriting from my main layout, and my main layout is desktop. So again, if I go back to desktop, we go to the same element, we have custom style, we go to tablet, we have green, which is custom, or sorry, we have green, which is inherited from device. And then let's go to mobile, because this is more often than not where you're going to start to need to make edits. It can be anything from text size to the frame width or whatever. But this is where you start to see why style indicator is so important. So if I go into here and let's say, this text is far too large. I don't want to do that. I want to change it to my H2 to 30 pixels, for instance. So if you guys know shared styles, you would apply a shared style to all of these H2. For instance, I can go in here and select this to be H2, and I can save and make sure that that's all inherited. So really at the end of the day, I wouldn't the goal isn't necessarily to have all green lights, but to be pretty close to it. So we've adjusted our font size, but I want this frame to be 100% width. So again, I'm going to use our resize tool. I have that. But this is the key. Right when I did that, I'm going to Apple Z again. We'll see these icons go from green to yellow, which means that these now have a custom style specific to that breakpoint, which means that on tablet and mobile, the width is not set to 100%. It's set to 95%, for instance. Tablet, same thing. But then once we get down to mobile, I've adjusted that width to be 100%, which then gives it a custom style. So again, it's kind of hard to understand. What we're trying to accomplish with the status indicators is to show you where these sort of where this styling is coming from. So if I was at 95%, let's say if I bring this back, you can see that like this 95% isn't actually coming from this specific breakpoint. It's actually coming from the desktop. And if I were to go back here and if I were to adjust this be 100%, go back to mobile again, we're all green 100%. So it's going to save you a lot of time from understanding where certain styles come from, as well as kind of planning out how to reduce the amount of adjustments you need across all your breakpoints. I've noticed when I personally have tested this myself that tablet more often than not needs few to minor adjustments, maybe even zero, to be honest. But mobile, as we all know, that's where you kind of need to start to get custom with the positioning and the size of things, and so more often than not, you're going to have custom styles for mobile, and that's completely fine. I know that was a lot. I know status indicator. It took me a while to understand and go through it. Does anyone have any questions about status indicator or want me to cover anything again? All right. So now let's go to improvements. So again, we actually covered all the features now, and the goal of those features are to reduce the amount of adjustments you need to make in responsive building. But we've also introduced some just general life improvements, if you will, to the platform. And one of my favorites, and I don't know why this is a personal favorite of mine. Hopefully it is for you, but I'll zoom in to our canvas and you guys can see it. As I adjust elements on my canvas, we now have what we kind of have nicknamed this measured distance line. And as I go up and down my canvas, I can see the exact pixel value of space between, let's say, the top of the section, for instance. This also works for elements that are next to each other. So before you kind of had to eyeball it, or if you were smart, you also turned on your grid so that you kind of like adjust. Okay, you kind of knew what spacing you wanted. But now you can actually, let me turn off my guide. You can now just kind of get that pixel perfect design even closer with this measured distance line. So I absolutely love this improvement. It's been helping me out a ton, especially when it comes to, uh, if I'm creating an article, for instance, and I need to make sure that my image or my text box is exactly 40 pixels from the top. Because I'll be copying, pasting that section, I want it to be pixel perfect. And that has just helped me out a ton. So that's the first overall improvement. The second one is for frames, and this was something I'm gonna turn this image into a frame again by Apple G, and this was something that this is a minor improvement, where you can now add padding into frames. That wasn't possible before, but now you can kinda go in here and you can just give this padding. So, um, in terms of frames and things like that, this is actually a huge, a great improvement for frames, but just a small mention today, so awesome. And then, in terms of other improvements, and I apologize, I actually need to go back and make sure I covered everything. The space, yes, this section spacing. So this is also came out of some feedback and a request from users is making sure that if their content writer or whoever, especially when you're making templates for your team or across your account, to make sure that the sections don't really get messed up and that the padding on top and bottom are the same. So what we've actually introduced here on the right side is if you select your section, you have spacing top now and you have spacing bottom. So I can actually go ahead and click on this and give this 100 pixels and 100 pixels. I'll go ahead and zoom out. And you'll now see that we kind of have this box enclosure. And in the design editor, it does look kind of strange. But where this comes to be a very powerful tool is if you're creating a template and you want to make sure that the contents within it always have 100 padding on top, 100 padding on bottom. Otherwise, let's say a writer adjusts a text, adds an extra line, maybe wants to have more elements or something, for instance. This will make it so that down below, again, we have automatic sizing here, so it'll change. No matter what, you will always have 100 pixels on top and 100 pixels spacing on bottom, and you can adjust that to whatever you might need for your specific design. But again, this is a great new feature because we also want to increase the collaboration between content writers as well as designers within the platform. Great. So that overall was improvements, and we do want to cover just some FAQs with this newest release. So I'll go ahead and go into the design editor here so we can kind of see this. So we realized, we pushed out the release. We've been getting thank you to everyone who submitted some bugs. We understand there are still some issues with projects, and our product team and dev team are working very hard to be able to fix those as soon as possible. If you do experience any bugs, please contact support. You can do that through if you have a dedicated Slack channel with your customer success agent or support agent. You can also do it by, of course, clicking on our messaging here and sending a message and then reporting a bug here as well. So just a note there, we are aware of some issues that are coming through, but again, please submit your bugs so that we can tackle them as quickly as possible. And it sounds like we got a quick chat. Oh, Rudy, thanks for that. That means a ton. We're super happy with the UI design change, and we hope you guys are too. And again, this whole new style panel, all these new layout features are for you to build even faster responsive layouts. So we're really excited to hear the feedback come from it. If you do think that it's improved your overall design style or your design process, that would mean a ton if you guys could let us know either directly to support, or you can email us at hello@vev.design. But jumping back in, we'll go over some FAQs. So the first one we hear all the time is what will happen to my content, and apologies, the nice thing working on the fly is fixing typos. What will happen to my content built in the old style panel and design editor? So anyone who's logged in recently has already seen this happen, that all the projects are automatically adapted to this new style panel and design editor. Not necessarily new design editor, but new layout features and positioning, if you will. And if you experience any issues with the project, you can reach out, like I said, on support directly after. Again, we are aware of some few cases of this. So please, if you do notice any positioning issues or stuff like that, please reach out. Also, will I have access to the previous style panel? So again, this goes back to like why we did this in the first place. We really are really dedicated to improving the design editor, making it faster, not only editing in the platform, but also your published content. So your published content should be getting great page speed performance and everything like that. We are also, bit of a spoiler alert, really looking into the animation tool and improving that, which was not possible when we were still kind of supporting Internet Explorer. So long answer to this question, will I have access to the previous style panel? Unfortunately, no, but that's because we're making way for the future and we're really excited to bring it to you. And then lastly, again, this is just always general. I found a bug. Where can I send more info? Again, we already kind of covered that overall. But I do want to take a second and we can go straight to any questions that you guys might have in chat. We're happy to answer them about the new features. And we're also happy to cover over any of the features or recover them if need be. So please feel free to let us know in chat if you want us to cover anything. And I'm just going to pause here for a second. If anyone has any questions, go ahead, post in the channel or post in the chat. Yes, Courtney, the webinar will be archived. Again, apologies. I always need to improve my skills. I realize I'm moving kind of fast, but the webinar will be archived, and you can watch the replay. It will be sent in an email after this. We'll also post it on our YouTube channel as well, so you can access it directly on there. Brent, that's a great question. Do we have any plans to roll out a robust table creator? So I can say that as currently we do not have any plans. However, I will say that we do prioritize based off of what's submitted in our roadmap. So if you do go to roadmap.vev.design and submit that, and maybe you have some colleagues or maybe you have some friends that can upvote that, that definitely takes that definitely brings that in consideration when we're prioritizing new features for sure. Thanks, Rudy. But Brett, hopefully that answers your question. In terms of the roadmap, again, like we're very transparent with what we want to tackle. So please, if you guys have any questions on what's next for us, please, again, roadmap.vev.design. Yeah, no worries. All right. Well, I think we're kind of, let's see. Jason just came with a question. With the new features or responsive design, how will those work with scaling? That is a great question, and I am not the best to answer this. Nikolai, I hear you kind of jumping in here.
Yeah. So scaling is actually something we're phasing out a little bit because it does not work very well in all browsers. But we're working on new ways of created scale designs by basically being able to set your font to be a scaling font instead. And we're also planning to launch something which allows you to utilize more of the canvas. So in combination with percent, we will kind of get the scaling effect without using scaling on your whole project. And this will be supported in all browsers.
Oh, Lord, he said the magic question. Yes,
That's
Jason.
Exactly. That's spot on. We'll use this technique to get like perfect scaling fonts alongside. And I feel like we also should mention we're working on creating stacked layouts. So you can create layouts which stack on top of each other and start pushing on everything else. And in combination with this scaling fonts, you will get like really cool responsive designs.
Yeah. And again, the stacked layout there, just really quick to add a layer on top of that, is going to be extremely powerful for frames. Again, we don't have an ETA on that release. We're kind of still testing it in house, but it's been amazing to basically organize frames as well as some other things within your section, just so that you don't have to worry again about making those adjustments on the different breakpoints. So very excited. And again, it's around the horizon, or we can see it. So it might be very soon. So don't worry about that. Awesome. Jason, I do want to shout out. That was a great question because I actually am very excited about those scaling features that you mentioned. Again, for anyone that doesn't really know what we're talking about in terms of Vmax or Vmin or Calc, Nikolai, do you want to jump into a small technical explanation on what that means, or should we save it for later?
I don't know if I want to go in depth because it's kind of a complex way, the way it works. So I'm not going to go in depth, but it basically makes your font respond to the size of your screen. and then you can kind of set the minimum and maximum of it, so it scales like perfectly with the screen.
Yeah. Amazing. So more to come. Again, we this is the first release of layout features. We do have, I wouldn't say more layout features to introduce, but we have these types of things that we're talking about today in terms of scaling, in terms of stacked layouts, and even more. I would say, I don't know, a little bit more down the road is introducing a grid or a layout grid into your canvas. So kind of building with the CSS grid in mind. We love our drag and drop responsiveness. We love that you can just take an image and drag it on your canvas. We do think this can be improved and enhanced again when designing for other breakpoints. Rudy, you got to submit to our roadmap. You got a ton of great ideas and tons of upvotes. So if you haven't already, super excited, and we're excited that you're excited. So it sounds great. So with further ado, unless we have any other questions, I think we can close up today. We're ending a little bit early, so everyone can get about 15 minutes back in their day. But we hope this was exciting for you. We hope that you kind of learned how to use the new features. And again, we will be providing the replay after this session so that you guys can check it out. All right. Any closing comments from anybody? Thank you, Elliot, for choosing the roadmap. Yeah. And just another small mention is that we are planning to do many more webinars in the future, as well as sort of build along. So, you can join me for a cup of coffee and we'll kind of build live and we'll kind of share design techniques. Personally, I'm super interested to see new techniques that you guys are using, what you guys have seen work in your own content. And again, we do have our showcase live on our site. So if you haven't submitted your piece, or if you want to submit your piece, again, you can reach out on our community in Discord. You can reach out in Slack to your support agent, or just email hello@vev.design. We're super interested to see what you guys are creating and also how you are creating it. So we want to feature some of you guys to do a breakdown on how you achieve your design. So awesome. And Eugene, thank you for that. Thank you everyone for coming, and we will see you in the next webinar.